The Valoran Empire ruled over 17 star systems. They had won every battle, every negotiation, every conflict that came their way. Empress Lyrana sat on her throne made of crystal, her purple skin glowing in the light from 3 suns. She had been the ruler for 200 years, and nobody had ever beaten her strategies. But now, there was a problem. The humans had arrived. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the Earth ship called Horizon. For 6 months, he had refused every deal the Empress offered. He said no to her threats. He stayed calm and professional through every meeting. The Valoran Empire needed a trade route through the Caesari Nebula, and so did Earth. But Jake would not give up even one small part of what Earth wanted. The Empress was getting angry. She looked at her advisors standing around her throne. They all looked nervous. Send Kira, Lyrana said. Her voice was strong and full of power. The advisors looked at each other. Nobody wanted to speak first. Finally, one of them stepped forward. Your Majesty, are you sure? Kira is our best warrior. Perhaps we should save her for more important missions. Lyrana laughed. The sound was cold and sharp. This is important. The human has refused everything else. Kira has never failed. Send her. Kira Thelvar was famous across the galaxy. She was beautiful, deadly, and smart. The Valorans were known for being attractive, but Kira was special, even among her own people. She had trained in 17 different fighting styles. She also knew how to make people fall in love with her. She had used this skill to destroy governments and win wars without firing a single shot. Your Majesty, another advisor said carefully, humans are strange. We do not know if our methods will work on them. All males are the same, Lyrana said. They all have weaknesses. Kira will find his weakness and use it. Go. Bring her to me. On the other side of the space station, Jake Morrison sat in his small room on the horizon. He was reading reports from the day's failed talks with the Valorans. He felt tired. Very tired. Jake was 42 years old. His hair was turning gray at the sides. He had been away from Earth for 3 years. In that time, 2 relationships with women from his crew had ended badly. He carried the weight of representing all of humanity in this strange part of the galaxy. Sometimes he wondered if he had made the right choice with his life. His computer made a sound. A new message appeared on the screen. It was from the Valoran Palace. They wanted to have a private dinner meeting with him. They said they wanted to discuss new ways to solve their problems. Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He knew this was probably a trap, but he also knew it was his job to at least try. He typed a response, accepting the invitation. Across the station, Kira stood in the Empress's throne room. She bowed low before her ruler. You called for me, Your Majesty. Yes. I have a mission for you. A human captain named Jake Morrison is blocking our trade negotiations. He has refused every normal approach. I want you to seduce him. Make him fall in love with you. None. Make him so confused that he cannot think straight. Then, we will get the treaty we want. Kira nodded. It will be done, Your Majesty. Tell me about this human. An advisor handed Kira a datapad. She began reading about Jake Morrison. He was born on Earth in a place called Ohio. He joined the Earth Space Navy when he was 20 years old. He worked his way up through the ranks by being smart and dedicated. He had been married once, but his wife left him because he cared more about his job than about her. He had no children. His psychological profile said he was lonely, tired, and loyal to Earth above everything else. Kira smiled. This would be easy. She had seduced warriors, kings, and generals. A lonely human diplomat would be simple. When do I start? She asked. Immediately. We have arranged a dinner meeting for tonight. You will go as a diplomatic ambassador. Make him want you. Make him need you. Then make him give us what we want. Kira bowed again. She left the throne room and went to prepare. She chose a dress that seemed to be made of light itself. It moved around her body like water. She arranged her silver hair so it fell down her back in waves. She practiced her smile in the mirror. Warm, but not too warm. Interested, but not desperate. She had studied human behavior for weeks. She knew what human males found attractive. She knew their body language, their cultural rules about romance, their weaknesses. She had read about Earth's movies and books about love. She understood what they wanted. Even if they did not say it out loud, Jake Morrison would be hers by the end of the week. Then the Empress would have her trade route. Jake put on his formal uniform for the dinner meeting. He looked at himself in the mirror. The uniform fit well, but he could see the tiredness in his eyes. He looked older than 42. Space travel and stress had aged him. He knew the Valorans were planning something. They always were. The Empress did not invite people to private dinners just to talk about trade routes. There would be some kind of trick, some kind of trap. But Jake also knew he had to go. Earth needed this trade route. The resources on the other side of the Kazari Nebula could help billions of people back home. He could not let personal fear stop him from doing his duty. He straightened his uniform and walked out of his room. The dinner was in 1 hour. Whatever the Valorans had planned, he would face it the same way he faced everything else. With calm, professional dignity. He did not know that across the station, the most dangerous woman in the galaxy was preparing to destroy him, not with weapons or violence, but with something much more powerful. She would use his own loneliness against him. She would make him feel wanted, understood, and desired. And then, when he was weak, she would take everything. At least, that was the plan. But Jake Morrison had survived 3 years in deep space by being careful and smart. He had read the intelligence reports about Valoran tactics. He knew they used beautiful operatives to compromise their enemies. He had been warned. The question was whether knowing about the trap would be enough to avoid it. Because Kira was very good at what she did. She had never failed a mission, and she was not planning to fail this one. Kira walked into the diplomatic suite at exactly the right time. Not too early, not too late. Perfect timing showed confidence. The room was beautiful, with windows that looked out at the stars. A table was set for 2 people. With candles and expensive food from both Valoran and Earth cultures, Jake stood up when she entered. His eyes went wide for just a moment before he controlled his expression. Good, Kira thought. He was affected by her appearance. That was the first step. Ambassador Thelvar, Jake said. His voice was polite and calm. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Please, Kira said, letting her voice go soft and warm. Call me Kira. We are both far from home. We should not be so formal with each other. She walked toward him slowly. The dress moved with her body in ways she had practiced for hours. She saw his eyes follow the movement, but his face stayed neutral. Interesting. He had better control than most males. Kira, then, Jake said. He pulled out a chair for her. Please, sit down. They sat across from each other at the small table. Kira made sure to sit in a way that showed her body's best features. She leaned forward slightly when she spoke. She touched her hair in ways that drew attention to her neck and shoulders. All of these were techniques she had used 100 times before. Jake poured wine for both of them. Valoran wine, she noticed. He had done his research about her culture. I hope we can find a way past our current difficulties, Jake said. This situation helps nobody. Earth needs the trade route. Your empire needs it too. There must be a solution. Kira smiled and took a small sip of wine. Perhaps we have been thinking about this wrong. Governments and empires think in terms of power and control. But people think in terms of connection and understanding. Maybe what we need is a more personal approach. She let her foot touch his under the table. Just for a moment, as if by accident. She watched his face. He noticed, but he did not react the way most males did. He simply moved his foot back slightly and continued talking. Personal connection is important, Jake agreed. But we are here representing billions of people. Our personal feelings have to come second to our responsibilities. Kira changed her strategy. She began asking him about his life, where he grew up on Earth, what made him join the Space Navy, what he missed most about home. She listened carefully to his answers and asked follow-up questions that showed real interest. This was the art of seduction. Make the target feel heard. Make them feel special. Make them think you understand them in ways nobody else does. Jake talked about growing up in Ohio, about loving the stars since he was a child. He talked about his failed marriage, about how his wife said he loved his duty more than he loved her. She was probably right, Jake admitted. He looked sad when he said it. I always put the mission first. Always put other people's needs before my own. After a while, that becomes who you are. You forget how to be anything else. Kira reached across the table and touched his hand. That must be very lonely. For a moment, she saw something in his eyes. Pain. Real pain. She felt a small twist in her chest. She pushed the feeling away. This was a mission. Nothing more. It is lonely, Jake said quietly. Then he pulled his hand back gently. But we all make choices. I chose this life. I have to live with those choices. The dinner continued. Kira tried every trick she knew. She laughed at his jokes, even the ones that were not funny. She told him stories about her own loneliness, her own struggles with duty. She let her dress slip slightly off her shoulder, then fixed it slowly. She looked at him through her eyelashes. She bit her lower lip when she was thinking. Nothing worked. Jake was kind. He was attentive. He asked good questions and seemed genuinely interested in her stories. But he kept a careful distance. When she moved closer, he politely moved back. When she suggested they continue talking in more comfortable quarters, he said the diplomatic suite was fine. After 2 hours, Kira felt something she had not felt in years. Frustration. Real, burning frustration. Captain Morrison, she finally said, dropping some of her careful act. Do you feel nothing between us? No connection at all? Jake looked at her for a long moment. Then, he smiled. But it was a sad smile. Kira, you are one of the most beautiful beings I have ever seen. In another life, in another situation, I would probably be falling all over myself trying to impress you. He paused. But I know why you are here. The Empress sent you to compromise me, to make me weak, so I will give you a better deal in the negotiations. I have been warned about this exact tactic. Kira felt like she had been slapped, her careful mask cracked. You knew? From the beginning? From the moment you walked in wearing that dress and giving me that smile? Yes, I knew. Jake stood up. I am not angry about it. You are doing your job. But I am not interested in being used as a tool. Not by you. Not by anyone. So you feel nothing? Kira asked. She was surprised to find that her voice shook slightly. You think I am completely fake? I think you are very good at your job, Jake said gently. Too good, probably. But I also think somewhere under all that training and technique, there is a real person. Maybe someday I will get to meet her. But not like this. Not when you are pretending to seduce me for political gain. He walked toward the door, then stopped, and turned back. Thank you for dinner, Kira. I will see you at tomorrow's negotiations. Good night. Then he was gone. Kira sat alone in the diplomatic suite. The candles were still burning. The food was half-eaten. Her wine glass was still full. She stared at the door Jake had walked through. In 200 years of operations, she had never been refused. Never. Males always fell for her act. They always became weak and stupid when she paid attention to them. They always gave her what she wanted. But this human had just walked away. He had seen through her completely and rejected her without anger or cruelty. He had been kind about it, which somehow made it worse. She felt the strange ache in her chest again. It was stronger now. She did not understand it. Was it shame? Embarrassment? No, it was something else. Something she had not felt since she was a child. Before the training. Before she became a weapon for the Empress. It was the desire to be real. To be seen as a person, not a tool. And Jake Morrison, the human she was supposed to seduce, was the first person in 100 years who had demanded she be genuine. Kira stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the human homeworld. Somewhere out there was a culture that produced people like Jake Morrison, people who valued truth over comfort. People who could resist temptation because they valued their principles more than pleasure. She had failed her mission tonight. The Empress would not be happy. But something strange had happened. For the first time in her career, Kira wanted to try again. Not because of duty or orders, but because she wanted Jake Morrison to see the real her. The person she had buried under years of training and missions. She wanted him to look at her and not see a weapon. She wanted him to look at her and see a woman. This was dangerous thinking. This was against everything she had been taught. But Kira could not push the feeling away. Tomorrow she would see him again at the negotiations. Tomorrow she would have another chance. But this time, she would not try to seduce him with tricks and techniques. This time, she would try something she had never tried before. She would try being honest. The next day's negotiations went nowhere, just like all the others before. But something had changed. Kira found herself watching Jake. Instead of trying to manipulate him, she noticed small things. The way he rubbed his temples when he was tired. The way his voice got quieter when he was talking about something that mattered to him. The way he always made sure everyone in the room had water before the meeting started. After the session ended, Jake surprised her by asking if she wanted to get coffee. Real coffee, he said. Not the formal dinners with hidden agendas. Kira agreed without thinking. They went to a small cafe on the station that served drinks from dozens of different worlds. Jake ordered something called a cappuccino. Kira ordered Velaran tea. They sat by a window overlooking the docking bays. Ships came and went, carrying cargo and people to different parts of the galaxy. I owe you an apology, Kira said suddenly. Jake looked surprised. For what? For last night. For trying to use you. For treating you like a mission instead of a person. She looked down at her tea. I have done this many times before. It always worked. I never thought about how it might make the other person feel. Jake was quiet for a moment. I appreciate that. But you were following orders. I understand duty. Probably better than most people. Jonicated pod. Jonicated by bilging. Jonicated by bilging side. Were comsescated pod. Some matter. Jonicated by bilging side. That does not make it right, Kira said. She looked up at him. Can I ask you something? How did you know? What gave me away? Jake smiled. The dress was too perfect. The timing was too good. The way you laughed at my terrible jokes. Nobody really thinks I am that funny. He paused. But mostly, it was your eyes. When you were doing your act, your eyes were empty. Like you were somewhere else. Like you were watching yourself from outside your own body. Kira felt something break inside her chest. He had seen it. The thing she thought nobody could see. The emptiness that came from being a tool for so long that she forgot how to be a person. I do not know how to be anything else, she admitted. I was taken from my family when I was 10 years old. The Empress saw potential in me. Beauty and intelligence, they said. They trained me to fight, to seduce, to manipulate. I have been doing this for so long that I do not remember who I was before. Jake reached across the table. Not to touch her, just to show he was listening. That must be incredibly hard. Sometimes I see other Valorans. Normal ones. With families, and jobs, and simple lives. I wonder what that would be like. To come home to people who care about you for who you are, not what you can do for them. That is what I gave up too, Jake said quietly. My ex-wife wanted a husband who came home at night, who was there for birthdays and holidays, who put her first sometimes. But I was always thinking about the next mission, the next crisis, the next group of people who needed help. He looked out the window. We are not so different, you and I. Both of us chose duty over everything else. Both of us are lonely because of it. They sat in silence for a while. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of quiet that happens when two people understand each other without needing words. Over the next few weeks, they met like this often. Sometimes for coffee, sometimes for walks around the station, sometimes just to sit and watch the stars together. Kira stopped trying to seduce Jake. Instead, she talked to him. Really talked. About her fears, her regrets, her dreams of a different life. Jake shared too. He told her about Earth, about the lakes in Ohio where he grew up, about his parents who had died while he was in space, about the guilt he felt for not being there, about wondering if all his sacrifices had been worth it. Do you ever think about walking away? Kira asked one evening. They were on the observation deck, watching a nebula in the distance paint the space with colors. Every single day, Jake admitted. But then I think about all the people depending on me. The trade routes that could save lives. The wars that might start if negotiations fail. How can I put my own happiness above all that? Kira turned to look at him. But what if being happy makes you better at your job? What if all this sacrifice is actually making you less effective because you are too tired, too lonely, too burned out to think clearly? Jake met her eyes. Something passed between them. A recognition. A connection that had nothing to do with missions or empires. When did you stop trying to manipulate me? He asked softly. I think it was when you walked out of that dinner, Kira said. Nobody had ever done that before. Nobody had ever demanded I be real. It made me want to be real. It made me want to show you who I actually am. Resound. Could now. Kira said. Could now. And who are you, Kira? When you are not being a weapon for the Empress? Kira thought about this. Nobody had asked her that question in 20 years. I think I am someone who is very tired of pretending. Someone who wants to matter to another person. Not because of what I look like or what I can do, but just because of who I am. Jake reached out and took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her since that first dinner. But this time, it was different. This time, it was real. You matter to me, he said. Not as a negotiator or an operative. Just as Kira. The person who likes her tea too hot. The person who laughs at bad jokes when they are genuinely funny. The person who looks at the stars and dreams of freedom. Kira felt tears forming in her eyes. She had been trained not to cry. Crying was weakness. But these tears felt like strength. They felt like finally being honest about how much she hurt, how much she wanted something different. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know, Jake said. The Empress expects results. She will see this as betrayal. My superiors will question my judgment too. We could both lose everything. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Or we could gain something worth more than duty. Something worth more than empires. Kira looked at this human who had somehow seen past all her defenses. Who had rejected her seduction, but accepted her truth. Who made her want to be brave enough to choose herself. For once. I am afraid, she admitted. Me too, Jake said. But I have spent my whole life being afraid and doing things anyway. Maybe it is time to be afraid and do something for myself, instead of for everyone else. They stood there in the starlight, two people from different worlds who had somehow found each other in the vast emptiness of space. The Empress had sent Kira to seduce Jake, to make him weak, to compromise him. But something else had happened instead. In resisting her tricks, Jake had shown Kira what genuine connection looked like. He had given her permission to be real. And in being real, she had accidentally seduced him with something far more powerful than beauty or technique. She had seduced him with honesty, with vulnerability, with the courage to admit she was broken, and lonely, and desperate for something true. The warrior sent to destroy him had instead found the one person in the galaxy who understood exactly how she felt. And he, the diplomat, trained to resist all manipulation, had found someone who made him want to stop resisting. Not because she tricked him, but because she showed him her real self. Kira leaned her head against Jake's shoulder. He put his arm around her. They stood together watching the stars, knowing that difficult choices were coming. The Empress would demand results. Earth would question Jake's loyalty. Both of them would face consequences. But for this one moment, none of that mattered. For this one moment, they were just two lonely people who had found each other. And that felt like enough. 2 months had passed since that first dinner. The negotiations between Earth and the Valoran Empire had not improved. The trade route through the Kesari Nebula remained a point of conflict, but Kira reported regular contact with Captain Morrison, so the Empress remained patient. Until now, Empress Lirana sat on her crystal throne, reading the latest reports. Her purple skin seemed darker than usual, a sign she was angry. Around her, advisors stood very still, trying not to draw attention to themselves. 2 months, the Empress said, her voice cold and sharp. 2 months of regular meetings between Kira and the human captain. Yet our position has not improved at all. In fact, the human seems more confident now, more sure of himself. One advisor cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps the human is more resistant than we thought, Your Majesty. Or perhaps, Lirana said slowly. Across the station, Kira was having coffee with Jake when her communicator buzzed. She looked at the message and felt her blood go cold. The Empress wanted to see her, immediately. I have to go, she told Jake. Her hands were shaking slightly. Jake saw her fear. What is wrong? The Empress. She wants to see me. This is not good. He stood up with her. Do you want me to come with you? Kira almost said yes. But she knew that would only make things worse. No. I have to face this alone. But Jake, if something happens to me, you should know that these past 2 months have been the best of my life. You gave me something I thought I could never have. You gave me permission to be myself. Jake pulled her close and kissed her forehead. Nothing is going to happen to you. We will figure this out together. Nothing. But Kira was not sure about that. She walked to the Valoran palace with heavy steps. Guards let her through the massive doors. The throne room was cold, despite the sunlight streaming through the windows. The Empress looked at her with eyes like ice. Kira Thelvar, my finest operative. The weapon I trusted above all others. Lirana's voice echoed in the large room. Tell me, what have you accomplished in 2 months? Kira kept her face neutral. Years of training helped her control her expression. I have established a strong relationship with Captain Morrison, Your Majesty. He trusts me now. He shares information with me, and yet the negotiations have not moved forward. Not even a little bit. The human is as stubborn as ever. The Empress leaned forward. Explain this to me. Captain Morrison is difficult to manipulate, Your Majesty. He is disciplined and aware of standard intelligence tactics. I am working to find deeper vulnerabilities. Quote, You have had 2 months. That is more than enough time. Lirana stood up from her throne. She walked down the steps toward Kira. Do you think I am stupid? Do you think I cannot see what is happening? John P. fell. Kira felt sweat on the back of her neck. Your Majesty, I do not understand. You care for him. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. My perfect weapon has developed feelings for her target. The throne room went silent. Kira knew there was no point in lying. The Empress could read people better than anyone in the galaxy. Yes, Your Majesty, I do care for him. The advisors gasped. One of them stepped forward. "This is treason. She has betrayed the Empire." Lirana held up a hand for silence. She studied Kira like a scientist studying an interesting specimen. "Tell me, does he care for you in return?" Kira lifted her chin. If she was going to be punished, she would at least be honest. "Yes, Your Majesty, he does. And yet the negotiations have not improved. If he cares for you, why has he not given us what we want? Because his feelings for me are separate from his duty to Earth. He will not betray his people, even for love." Lirana laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "How noble, how romantic, and how completely useless to me." She walked back to her throne. "You were sent to seduce him, to make him weak, to compromise his judgment. Instead, you fell in love with him like some foolish child. I did not intend for this to happen, Your Majesty. Intention does not matter. Results matter, and you have failed me." The Empress sat down heavily. "Do you know what happens to operatives who fail? Do you know what happens to weapons that break?" Kira did know. She would be sent to the frontier worlds, dangerous places where the Empire was fighting wars. She would be just another soldier, no longer special, no longer valued. For someone who had been the Empress's favorite, it was a kind of death. "I understand, Your Majesty. Do you?" "I do not think you do." Lirana's eyes were hard. "You have 1 month. 1 month to either complete your mission or never return to this palace. Make Captain Morrison compromise his position. Get us favorable terms in the treaty. Or face exile. Forever." "Your Majesty, I do not think I can. I do not care what you think you can do. I care about results. You claim to love this human? Then use that love. Make him choose you over his duty. Prove to me that you are still worth something." Kira bowed deeply. "Yes, Your Majesty." She left the throne room feeling sick. 1 month. She had 1 month to betray the only person who had ever really seen her. 1 month to destroy the only genuine relationship she had ever had. 1 month to choose between duty and love. She went back to her quarters and sat alone for hours. What could she do? If she refused the Empress's orders, she would be exiled. She would never see her home world again. But if she obeyed, she would lose Jake. She would have to manipulate him, use his feelings against him, become the weapon she had been trained to be. That evening, Jake came to find her. He saw immediately that something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked. Kira looked at him. This man who had shown her kindness, who had demanded she be real, who had given her the first taste of genuine happiness she had known in decades. "I have to tell you something," she said. "And you are going to hate me for it." Jake sat down next to her. "Tell me." So she told him everything. About the Empress's ultimatum, about the 1-month deadline, about the order to compromise him or face exile. She expected him to be angry, to feel betrayed, to throw her out. Instead, he just nodded slowly. "I knew this was coming," he said quietly. "You did? The Empress does not give up. I knew she would eventually force your hand." He took her hands in his. "So, what do you want to do?" "I do not know. If I refuse her orders, I lose everything I have ever known. But if I obey, I lose you. I lose the only real thing I have ever had." Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What if there was a third option? What if we could give the Empress what she wants, without either of us betraying our principles?" "What do you mean?" "I mean we find a real solution to the trade route problem. Not through manipulation or seduction, but through genuine diplomacy. We work together to create a treaty that serves both our peoples. The Empress gets her trade route, Earth gets its needs met, and we both get to keep our integrity." Kira felt a spark of hope. "Do you think that is possible?" Crost, "I do not know, but it is worth trying." better than the alternatives. He squeezed her hands. But I will not betray Earth, even for love. And I would not want you to betray your people for me either. We need to find a way that honors both our loyalties. The Empress will not accept anything less than total victory. Then we will have to give her a victory. Just not the kind she expects. Jake stood up and pulled Kira to her feet. We have 1 month. Let us use it to create something better than manipulation or betrayal. Looking at Jake's determined face, Kira felt something new. Not hope exactly, but something close to it. Maybe they could find a way through this. Maybe they could have both duty and love. Maybe the warrior and the diplomat could create peace, where their empires had only created conflict. It was a small chance. But it was better than no chance at all. The next 4 weeks were the hardest of Kira's life. During the day, she and Jake worked on creating a new treaty proposal, one that would give both sides what they needed. At night, she worried about whether the Empress would accept it, whether Jake's superiors would approve it, whether they were just wasting time on an impossible dream. Jake called his supervisors on Earth. He explained the situation carefully, leaving out the part about his relationship with Kira. He focused on the treaty terms: shared control of the trade route, joint patrols to protect shipping, a cultural exchange program that would help Earth and the Valoran Empire understand each other better. To his surprise, Earth approved the basic framework. They were tired of the stalemate too. If the treaty could work, they were willing to try. The hard part would be convincing the Empress. On the last day of her deadline, Kira requested an audience with Lirana. She walked into the throne room carrying a data pad with the proposed treaty. Her heart was beating fast, but her face stayed calm. Years of training helped her hide her fear. The Empress looked at her with cold eyes. Your month is up, Kira Thelvar. What results do you bring me? Kira bowed. A treaty, Your Majesty. One that gives the Valoran Empire full access to the Khazari trade route. Lirana leaned forward, interested despite herself. Go on. The proposal includes joint administration of the route. Valoran and Earth ships will patrol together, protecting commerce from pirates and other threats. Both governments will share the taxes and fees from the trade. And there will be a cultural exchange program, allowing our peoples to learn from each other. Joint administration? You expect me to share power with the humans? Your Majesty, you will have what you wanted. Access to the trade route, protection for your ships, revenue from the commerce. The only difference is that Earth will have the same benefits. This is not defeat. This is sustainable peace. One of the advisors spoke up. This is weakness. We should have total control. But Lirana held up her hand. She was smart enough to recognize a good deal when she heard one. And the human captain? Is he compromised? Kira chose her words carefully. Captain Morrison supports this treaty because it serves Earth's interests. What exists between us personally has not affected his professional judgment. How convenient, the Empress said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You fall in love with your target, but somehow this leads to a fair treaty rather than Earth's surrender. Do you think I am a fool? No, Your Majesty. I think you are a realist. You wanted access to the trade route. This treaty gives you that access. It also gives you something more valuable. A genuine alliance with Earth. Not one based on manipulation or force, but on mutual benefit. The throne room was silent. Kira held her breath. This was the moment everything would be decided. Either the Empress would accept the treaty, or Kira would be exiled forever. Lirana stood up from her throne. She walked down to where Kira stood and looked her in the eyes. You were my best operative. I sent you to seduce a human and break his will. Instead, you return with a treaty that treats Earth as an equal partner. She paused. It is also the best agreement our diplomats have managed in 6 years of trying. My legal advisors have reviewed it. They say it is sound. Kira felt a tiny bit of hope. Then, You will accept it? The council will vote on it. But yes, I believe it will pass. You have proven yourself compromised. You cannot be trusted with sensitive missions anymore. Kira's heart sank. She had expected this, but it still hurt. I understand, Your Majesty. Instead, the Empress continued, you will serve as ambassador to Earth. Someone must manage this new treaty. Someone must oversee the cultural exchange program. And who better than someone who understands both Valoran and human perspectives intimately? Kira looked up in shock. Your Majesty, do not misunderstand me. This is not a reward. This is the only way you are still useful to the Empire. You will go to Earth. You will live among the humans. And you will make sure they honor their commitments. If you fail, there will be consequences. Yes, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. Lorana waved her hand dismissively. Go. Prepare for your new assignment. And Kira? Try not to fall in love with anyone else. It seems to make you soft. We, Kree. 1. Kira bowed deeply and left the throne room. As soon as she was outside, she felt her knees go weak. She had done it. She had convinced the Empress to accept the treaty. She would not be exiled. And she would be going to Earth, where Jake would be. 3 weeks later, Kira stood in the docking bay of the Horizon. Her belongings were packed in simple cases. Everything she owned fit in 3 containers. Years of being an operative had taught her not to accumulate things. Possessions were just weight that slowed you down. Jake walked up to her. He was wearing civilian clothes. A simple shirt and pants. No uniform. You are really retiring? Kira asked. After 20 years, I have earned it. Besides, someone needs to show you around Earth. You will need a guide. Quote, just a guide? Kira asked, allowing herself to smile. Jake pulled her close. Definitely more than a guide. The Empress sent her finest warrior to seduce me. I resisted the seduction. But I never stood a chance against the real you. Kira laughed. It was a sound of pure happiness. Something she had not felt in decades. I was supposed to be the one doing the seducing. You did seduce me. Just not the way you planned. You seduced me with honesty, with vulnerability, with the courage to choose truth over duty. Jake touched her face gently. That was more powerful than any trick or technique. I did not choose truth over duty. I chose a different kind of duty, one that serves people instead of empires. Maybe that is what I have been missing all these years. I thought duty meant sacrifice. But maybe real duty means finding solutions that let everyone win. They walked onto the horizon together. The ship would take them to Earth, where Kira would begin her new role as ambassador, where Jake would start a new life away from the constant pressure of negotiations and diplomacy, where both of them could finally be themselves instead of weapons for their governments. As the ship lifted off from the station, Kira looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Valora Prime, the home she would probably never see again. But she did not feel sad. She felt free. The Empress had sent her to seduce Jake Morrison and gain advantage in negotiations. The plan had been simple. Use her beauty and training to make him weak, make him compromise, make him betray his principles. But Jake had resisted. Not with anger or cruelty, but with a simple insistence that she be genuine. And in that resistance, he had given her something unexpected. He had given her permission to be human, to be vulnerable, to be real. Kira had failed her mission to seduce Jake through manipulation. But in failing, she had succeeded at something more important. She had found genuine love. She had found someone who valued her for who she was, not what she could do. She had found freedom from being a weapon. And Jake, the diplomat who had spent 20 years putting duty above everything else, had finally found something worth choosing over duty. Not because it made him weak, but because it made him whole. The Empress had sent her hottest warrior to seduce the human. The human had resisted the trap, But the warrior herself could not resist what happened next. She could not resist the pull of genuine connection. She could not resist the desire to be seen and valued for her true self. In the end, they had both been seduced. Not by tricks or techniques, but by the simple power of two lonely people finding each other in the vastness of space. As the horizon jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward Earth and a new beginning, Kira leaned against Jake's shoulder. "What do you think Earth will be like?" she asked. "Messy, complicated, beautiful. A lot like us, actually." Kira smiled. "I think I will like it there. I think you will too. And Kira, thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to be real. For showing me that sometimes the best way to serve others is to first be honest with yourself. For reminding me that duty and happiness do not have to be enemies." Kira kissed him softly. "Thank you for seeing me. The real me. Not the weapon. Not the operative. Just me." They sat together in comfortable silence as the ship carried them toward their new life. Two former servants of empires, now free to be themselves. Two people who had found love in the most unexpected way. The mission had failed. But in its failure, something better had been born. Not manipulation or seduction, but genuine partnership. Not victory or defeat, but mutual understanding. Not empire or conquest, but simple human connection across the stars. And that, both of them knew, was worth more than any trade route, any treaty, or any empire could ever be.